Hello everybody. My presentation is called Sundanese Tecnikal Death Metal. Imagined genealogies and genre formations between metal and reac in Bandung, West Java. My name is Luigi Monteanni and I am a PhD candidate at SOAS, University of London. This presentation looks at how and why extreme metal music is creating genre hybridity in a regional trance performance named reac based in Bandung. My two questions are how, on the basis of historical dynamics and socially connoted aesthetic features, do React practitioners and aficionados deal with such a regional transnational intersection through online and offline commentary? And the second is how do participants articulate affinities and divergences according to preoccupations with maintenance or transgression of genre boundaries, as well as how such arguments are discursively linked to particular social categories, including class, genre, and ethnicity. In order to answer to such questions, I employ the notion of commentary, explained by Mark Hobart as the study of people arguing about things using verbal statements and practices. So, any practice drawing attention to the logic, emotional, or aesthetic validity of an utterance can be a commentary. But commentary itself hasn't a fixed canon. Whether, when, and to whom something is commentary is more open than it might appear, thus establishing not what commentary really is, but what counts as commentary, for whom and for which purposes is itself a matter of inquiry and a fundamental approach to be taken. Commentary then is concerned with the distinction between casual utterances and activities and those to which people respond and react to or engage with. This practice has been seen by scholars such as Nicola Masciandaro or Jeremy Wallach and Esther Clinton as coherent with the metal ethos and practices, where in Indonesia is particularly known as nongkrong, hanging out and talking about metal. Then, as we see in the examples on the slide, commentary can be both an utterance that we express during a discussion about the affinities and divergences between two genres, in this case metal and reac, or it can be suggesting affinity and coherence between genres and stylistic elements with the practice of playing the right chord or the right drum pattern, for example, when trying to craft a new crossover or new music. But before starting, I want to take up a preliminary definition of extreme metal. So building on Khan Harris, extreme metal, thrash metal, black metal, death metal, and their respective variants is a group of subcultural music genres born in the early 80s and deriving from heavy metal, a genre emerging from hard and loud rock in the 1970s with Black Sabbath's first namesake album. This group of genres is defined by extremely distorted electric guitars, soaring or raspy unpitched vocals, western drum set with often heavy double bass drums, virtuose expression, high-paced, energetic, and slightly swinging grooves. Aesthetically, these genres try to pursue a sense of heaviness and harshness, and a general sense of emotional and musical overdrive. With that out of the way, I want to return to issues of genre formations, genre boundaries, and genre hybridization between reac and extreme metal, considering a post on the Facebook group, the official Facebook group Seni Reac, in which affinity is stressed through parody. Jokingly, in the post, a user asks to choose between reac and beatdown, a compositional technique of hardcore metal music. In the first comment, a user answers Sundanese Tecnikal Death Metal, implying an affinity or even a juxtaposition between reac and extreme metal. The second user writes, both are good, let's create a crossover, reac music, beatdown dance, implying not only a continuity between these two stylistic elements, but a possibility of integrating them, implementing them. By further researching in this group, I discovered that there are many discussions on different topics that debate the possibility of expressing crossovers, creating crossovers and experimentations between reac and this batch of genres, this batch of stylistic elements that make up the extreme metal subculture. But as I was saying, comments and discussions are not the only types of commentary practices that are trying to stress the continuity between these two genres. In fact, in these images we can see a group of kids from a reac group playing a cover of Metallica's Enter Sandman, actually basically a cover and rework of Deep Purple's Smoke on the Water, with React drum patterns on a dog dog and a western drum set. There is also an electric guitar playing the riff that is not visible in the images. After these methodological and ethnographic premises, it's now time to see what React really is, how does it sound, and most importantly, how does a classic version of React differs from a new, more experimental version enacted by younger and more audacious groups which try to obtain crossover from experimentation with meta stylistic elements. Let's listen then to two field recordings I recorded myself when I was in Bandung in 2017 and 18 for previous research on the horse trance dances and React, and that I released on Discrepant in 2019. The first recording is by one of the founders group of the genres, of course, Chuarta Putra, coming from Chinunuk. In the second recordings, we can hear the group Putrajaya Melati, much younger, coming from Majalaya, and that is trying new creative collaborations and crossovers called Collaborasi. In particular, we can hear a distorted tarompet and a distorted electric guitar. To give a definition of Cassenia React, literally the React art, it is a performance genre that originated in the 30s in the peripheries of Bandung, West Java. And it is an entertainment performance for Ajatan, or Sundanese life cycle celebrations such as weddings and circumcision. During the performance, a trance master guides a series of spirit possessions on audience members and performers with the accompaniment of an ensemble. The performance is a sub-regional variant of the horse trance dances, a series of performances that can be found throughout Java and Indonesia, and even beyond where Javanese immigrants have settled. In fact, allegedly, this family of performances stemmed from East Java with the original Jarambrang, and evolved later in manifold forms according to the places where it is practiced. The horse dances in general, and React in particular, are believed to be a very raw, masculine and coarse performance that is not apt for everyone. An ensemble is usually composed of 15 to 30 people and includes 5 conical percussions named Dog Dog, a larger percussion named Beduk than we see in the picture, betallophones named Kretschrek for rhythmic feelings, and a wind instrument, a double wind instrument named Tarompet. Furthermore, a troupe is composed of musicians, one or more trance masters, malim, and a leader, a pimpinan. Usually, these people are male blue-collar workers which have React only as a secondary job or more a passion. Although it is not forbidden for a woman to join a React group, in fact there are many React groups which feature even more than one woman, it is actually not really recommended for them to do so. In fact, it is believed that React is a practice that is apt only for strong bodies and psyches, qualities that is believed women do not generally possess. In this slide, we can see 2 topical moments of a classic React performance. On the left, the younger generation of founder group Juarta Putra is just performing. On the right corner of the left image, we see a possessed kid, actually. And on the right, we can see a performer adjusting the costume of Bang Barongan, the mascot, so-called, or spirit familiar of the performance, for the dancer that is inside it. At the origins of React, we can find the crossover between 2 genres. The first one is Angklung Bunchis, and the second one are, as said, the horse trance dances. In the first case, Angklung Bunchis is a Sundanese indigenous apotropaic rural genre composed of patterns of dog-dog drum and patterns of an idiophone, multiple idiophones called Angklung. On the other hand, horse dances have provided specific stylistic elements like items used during the performances, styles of dance, and even the possession. On the contrary, today's Reak or Reakiwari was much influenced by the introduction of technology and electronic PAs from the 70s on. This caused a centrality of the tarumpet, which now can replace entirely the ensemble of Angklung and has caused since then their disappearance. But perhaps the most interesting feature for this presentation is how metalheads participate to Reak as an integral audience. In fact, the practice, as we have said, can be found in the suburbs of Bandung, especially in Ujung Berung, where metal subculture originates. Indeed, metalheads participate regularly to Reak as performers and dedicated audience, and are an integral audience building on Schechner, that says that an integral audience is where people come because the event is of special significance to them. This significance is, in my opinion, principally based on similar musical aesthetics, as we will see kasar, coarse, ramé, noisy, expressed by noise and distortion, as well as geographic proximity and spiritual background. These relationships between extreme metal and Reak have been possible thanks to a long story of relevance for extreme music and loud rock in Bandung. In fact, since the 70s, these pseudo movements have been part of a bottom-up, grassroots oppositional community that helped fuel the toppling of dictator and second president Suharto, and represent an ensemble of musical practices using a global language to react to local issues. In fact, in Bandung, embodying a metal identity is still a transgressive practice, challenging context of Islamic orthodoxy, such as normative sex gender roles and or the role of the family for Indonesian individuals. Although today metal not only is tolerated but also widely celebrated, since Indonesia is one of the few states that prides itself of having an heavy metal president, actual president Joko Widodo. Moreover, in Indonesia in particular, topics of class, masculinity, community and equality, along with scenic integrity, are the main interest points for fans. Values that are compatible with and that get pride over ethnic and religious backgrounds, differently from the majority of the global metal scene. In this slide, 3 of the most renowned death metal outfits in Bandung. From top to bottom we have Forgotten, Chasad, and not least Burger Kill, which in 2020 were placed 14 by the famous magazine Metal Hammer in the list of the 15 best metal bands of all time, as a result of the Metal Hammer magazine poll. But in spite of this strong relationship with extreme music genres and the fact that metalheads are an important audience for Reak, these two genres remain refractory to hybridity. In fact, in the Facebook discussion on the right, taken from the Reak official group, 2 users established that Reak and metal are not really compatible and should stay separated. In practice, metalhead Reak performance have found metal experimentation inconvenient, mainly for issues of genre canon and market interest. Furthermore, even though creativity and crossovers are encouraged, especially in contemporary Reak, less normative versions of the genre are disregarded, if not frowned upon. Indeed, the crucial difference between various forms of creativity is in the support of traditional ethnic values that Reak is actually searching for generally. On the other hand, metal regional hybridity in Indonesia is often regarded as kampungan or backward, as already pointed out by Wallach. In general, when we look at them closely, we see that the ideological and even stylistic background of this genre is kind of very rigid and very different, almost incompatible. On the one hand, Ksenia Reak wants to be traditional, indigenous, ethnic, national, and even institutional. If you look at the images, at the top we can see Juarta Putra, one of the founders group, proudly displaying Indonesian flags on their uniform. In the other image we can see a politic personality riding a bambarongan during the official Bandung Reak festival. On the other hand, extreme metal in Indonesia, also as already shown by Baulk, wants to be contemporary, transnational, cosmopolitan, anti-essentialist, and even anti-exoticist. These two last terms meaning that metal tries to be itself, trying to run away from the cliches imagined of an exotic type of metal or a specifically Indonesian traditional type of metal crossovers. Metal in Indonesia wants to be the best metal in the world, possibly. Inspired by the transnational scene, feels like a part of it, not like a part of a specific exotic and exoticized country. And nevertheless, imageries and ideologies of react and metal superimposing what I call imagined genealogies, or the fact that many metal performers have stressed how react is more metal than metal, or even the original metal. These forms of commentary stress continuity between genres based on aesthetic and geographic proximity, the fact that both of them come from the Ujung Berung village, and that both of them are interpreted and listened to as kasar, coarse, aurally coarse, and rame, tangled, noisy genres, as opposed to genres such as like Javanese gamelan, which can be alus, elegant, pleasant, but also membosankan, boring. Furthermore, this genealogy develops from common themes of class, masculinity, modernity, and spirituality. The fact that both are male blue-collar workers genres, that both deals with heterodox perceptions of spirituality, transglobal music, and supernatural phenomena. And even consider the canon and ideological resistance to crossover of these genres, the influence of extreme metal is causing digital conversations debating the affinities and divergences between react and metal, as we have seen. Famous bands are inviting react groups to perform at metal concerts, as we see on the right with Undergod. React practitioners use distorted electric guitars and even metal distortion pedals in their performances. And last, it has caused the diffusion of metal imagery in react performances. All in all, even if a new genre crossover, an explicit genre crossover, has been impossible until this point, it is undeniable that we are witnessing a constant flirt between genres and their stylistic elements. In this slide, we can see two different separate occasions in which rec troops have been invited to perform at metal concerts. On the left, an open-air concert of Death Metal Syndicate, and on the right, the same that we have seen before, Undergod performing for Hellprint in a private studio. In this slide, we can see different posts in which people are offering or searching for metal zone distortion pedals, classic tools of metal music productions, although a part of the metal and the practitioner worlds think that is not a really good tool, actually. And last, in this slide, we can see how the metal imagery takes over even where react remains classic. In these three images, we can see three separate groups using extreme metal nicknames. From left to right, top to bottom, we have Team Dadang Metal, we have the Pimpinan AF Dead Metal, sick, and finally we have UDM, Uyud Death Metal, sick. In this presentation, we have seen how both metalheads and rec practitioners use different forms of verbal and practical commentary in order to establish continuity between two genres for which explicit crossover is seen as impossible. Where classic analysis of genre and style fall short in addressing how hybridization works beyond the labels formed by canon, commentary is able to pinpoint interest and engagement between defined elements of music practice, even where crossover is denied or even avoided by practitioners. Particularly for react and metal then, although genre crossover seems impossible for economic and canon issues, stylistic commentary offers the occasion for informal creative experimentation. Secondly, through commentary, metalheads establish a connection and genealogy between react and extreme metal on the basis of the performances, oral qualities, and relationships with the supernatural, masculinity, and class. Last, while maintaining intact discourses about authenticity, these genres, refractory to experimentation, manage to weave musical relations with one another, expanding on each other's imagery and stylistic repertoire. These were my conclusions. Here's a slide with selected bibliography that was used to build this presentation, and thanks everybody for the attention.